The scientific city of Brazzaville, the Republic of Congo. This is where the hearing impaired, trained in mushroom farming, are engaged in the production of mushrooms by combining wood chips, wheat bran or corn to obtain the product loved by the Congolese. The operation is done in stages, the most important of which is explained by the trainer, Diomesi Dubu. This is an operation of pasteurization of the substrates of culture of oyster mushrooms, varieties of mushrooms that we do in our site here. So after the preparation, these substrates or material on which mushrooms grow pass through here to be subjected to a heat treatment, that is to say, by heat. Diomesi Dubu is convinced that the hearing impaired have aptitudes or faculties to cultivate mushrooms. According to engineer Senge Senge, the training in mushroom growing lasted only 10 days. The coaching to become a real business will take a long time, maybe 12 to 18 months, because not everyone can have the capacity to be an entrepreneur. At the mushroom farm, mature oyster mushrooms are harvested and sold. This work appeals to Nathan Kiangebene, a hearing impaired man who needs more material to improve his skills. To do a good job, you need materials. You know that we are people living with disabilities. We are part of the vulnerable people, and it means that we have many needs. This group of hearing impaired people we've just visited, already in the mushroom production phase, was trained on an experimental basis by the Challenge Futura Foundation, which hopes to train more in the days to come.
Claude Martial à Brazzaville pour Africa News.
Ethiopia announced on Wednesday that it had accepted an invitation from the African Union to hold peace talks with rebels in the northern region of Tigray. In a statement, the Ethiopian Government Communication Service, GCS, said the AU had communicated in its invitation the date and venue of the talks. Tigray forces has yet to respond to the invitation for talks this weekend in South Africa, which would be the first formal negotiations between the two sides since the outbreak of war in November 2020. No details on other participants were released either, including whether neighboring Eritrea, whose army supports the Ethiopian government forces, had been invited. Tigrayan rebels have always said they would not accept Asmara's presence at any talks. The AU reportedly set up a troika of mediators made up of former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, as well as former South African Vice President Phumzile Mlambo Nguka. After a 5-month truce that raised hopes for peace negotiations, fighting resumed on August 24 in northern Ethiopia between Tigrayan rebels and the Federal Ethiopian Army. Authorities in Africa's most populous country, Nigeria, say the last 23 hostages held by gunmen who carried out a major attack on a train in the northwest at the end of March have regained their freedom. The head of security in Kaduna State, Samuel Aruwan, confirmed the release of the hostages and their care by the authorities. On March 28, 8 people were killed and dozens abducted when assailants detonated a bomb on a railway track and opened fire on the train from the capital, Abuja, to Kaduna. This extremely sophisticated attack against a train considered safe until then had particularly shocked Nigerians. No jihadist group has so far claimed responsibility for the attack. The kidnappers had demanded in several videos the release of some of their imprisoned commanders in exchange for the hostages. On several occasions, they had threatened to execute the captives by releasing some of them.
The long-awaited trial in The Hague of Félicien Kabuga for his role in the 1994 genocide. Proceedings against the former businessman and radio station owner, charged with 3 counts of genocide and 2 counts of crimes against humanity, got underway last week. He initially refused to appear before the UN court.
Note the presence of Mr. Kabuga this morning by video link from the UN detention unit. I confirm having been advised that he is able to view the proceedings and to hear them in the Kenya-Rwanda language.
Over 800,000 minority Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed in 1994. Prosecutors say his Radio-Télévision Libre des Mille Collines fueled the genocide. The chairman of the RTLM was indeed the first person who needed to make sure that the sub-paragraph of the article in question was complied with by the staff. Hate propaganda and division propaganda continued to such an extent that some members of the Tutsi population were killed across the country. There was a lot of mistrust in the population, and RTLM did nothing to correct the situation, but in fact went all out to continue with its divisionist propaganda. Kabuga has pleaded not guilty to the charges. The trial will likely last for months, with prosecutors expected to call more than 50 witnesses.
Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has apologized for a social media tirade by his outspoken son that included a threat to invade Kenya and remarks about the country's recent elections. The rant on Twitter earlier this week by Museveni's 48-year-old son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, caused offense in Kenya, prompting the country's foreign minister to meet with the Ugandan ambassador. President Museveni on Wednesday also rebuked his son for meddling in the affairs of Kenya and speaking publicly about political matters, something he is barred from doing as a high-ranking military official. The Ugandan leader said he had conveyed these remarks to William Ruto, Kenya's president. Earlier, he fired his son as commander of the infantry forces after the series of tweets. Dubbed the tweeting general of Uganda, Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba in recent months had sparked anger among some Ugandans who see his regular posts on Twitter as provocative and sometimes even dangerous.